Hi guys, we meet again in another short video session sempena PKP. I hope all of you can cope with the teaching and learning activities throughout these very tough times. It is very challenging to us, and we understand that it is very challenging to you as well, but we try our very best to deliver the subject matter to you throughout this semester period. Okay, so in the previous video we discusses on the qualitative analysis, whereby we measure the risk factor based on two parameters, remember, which is probability and impact. So basically these two parameters were measured in a very generic scale, as in low, medium or high. That's it. And then you compare the two and you get the risk factor. Sometimes it is measured in the scale of 1 to 5. Okay. This time around, in quantitative analysis, it will involve numbers. In quantitative analysis, we will run a numerical analysis. We will apply a numerical value to the probability and the impact factor so that you can come up with a monetary amount of the expected value for each alternative. Okay, so stay tuned. One of the common tool that we use in quantitative analysis is decision tree. So decision tree, it represents a general approach to making decision. Dan nama pun decision tree, so it helps you make decision. You can use decision tree in almost any aspect of your life. In fact, you can even use decision tree analysis kalau you nak plan for your majlis kahwin. Contohnya, if you want to decide where is the better location, you can use decision tree analysis. Oh, sampai tersasul saya. You can also use decision tree analysis to decide who is the better caterer. You can also use decision tree analysis to decide who is the better mak andam. Okay. In the context of operation management decision tree is a very useful tool. For example, if you want to plan on the production capacity may involve the number of the raw materials or your manpower or your inventory. So decision tree is a very useful tool. Number 2, you can also use decision tree in location planning. For example, if your company wanted to open up a new branch, so you can decide whether opening up at nearer branch or further branch is better. So you can use decision tree analysis. You can also use the decision tree to decide the vendors for your product design and also for your service design. Who is the better supplier? Who gives better promotion? Who gives better alternative? You can use decision tree. And number 4, you can also use decision tree when you want to select for equipments for your manufacturing plant, for example. So which equipment gives the better benefit, gives a better return? So you can use decision tree analysis. So in general, the decision tree, it helps you decide the better alternatives, whereby they convert all the probabilities and the impact into an equivalent value. This equivalent value is measured in money, ringgit Malaysia ataupun dollars. So when it comes to money, everything becomes quantitative. Okay, here is an example. Let's say you can choose between two business projects. You can open up a candy shop or you can open up a bubble tea kiosk. You know bubble tea? That tea life, that chat time kind of thing? Okay, so let's say if you open up a candy shop, it is estimated that you can earn up to 1,000 ringgit per week, for example. And if you open up a bubble tea kiosk, it is expected that you can earn up to 900 ringgit per week. Okay, so if you are to compare the earnings between these two business projects, which one is more preferred? Which one would you select? Of course, you would select the one with the higher earnings, which is the candy shop. Okay. But that is not always the case when we want to do quantitative analysis. Okay, so this time around, we are going to use the same example to illustrate the use of decision tree in quantitative analysis. So the same condition applies. Let's say you have two business projects, two potential business that you can proceed with, which is a candy shop and also the bubble tea kiosk. Now, there are probabilities that the candy shop will succeed and there are probabilities that this candy shop will fail. The same goes when you want to open up the bubble tea kiosk. There are probabilities that it will succeed and there are probabilities that it will fail. So this options of whether the shop succeeded or whether it failed is called alternatives. Okay, so in a quantitative analysis, you have to know what is the numerical value for each alternatives. So in this case, let's say the percentage of succeed and fail is equal 50-50%. So if the business succeed, then it is a 50% chance that the business succeed, and there are 50% chance that the business fail, and it is equal for the bubble tea kiosk as well. Okay, it is important to note that when you want to apply the numerical value or the numerical percentage for each alternative, it must total up to 100%. Okay, now let's look at the condition. The first condition: if the candy shop succeed, then you will earn 1,000 ringgit per week. Whereas, if the candy shop fail, you will rugi, lose 300 ringgit per week. Okay. Now, if you look at the bubble tea kiosk condition, if it succeed, you will earn 900 ringgit per week. Whereas, if it fail, you will lose 100 ringgit per week. So now you look at this condition, there are different magnitude of earnings and losses. And so how do you make decision with these alternatives? So because it is a quantitative analysis, you have to calculate the equivalent value for each alternatives. Okay, the equivalent value is the total of probabilities multiply with the expected impact. Okay, so for example, if you want to calculate the equivalent value if you open up the candy shop, okay, first we take off the 50% chance of success. 50% chance is equal to 0.5 multiply with the expected impact, which is earning of $1,000. So 0.5 multiply by 1,000 ringgit, and then you have to add up with the remaining alternatives. So in this case, the remaining alternatives is that if the candy shop fail. So again, multiply the probabilities, which is 50%, or in the formula, it will become 0.5 multiply with the impact, which is 300. But take note that the impact this time around is that you are losing 300 ringgit. So that 300 become negative 300 because you are losing the money, kan? So you just key in all this value in your calculator and you will get an expected value of 350 ringgit for the candy shop. Okay, you repeat the same process for the bubble tea kiosk as well. You will get an expected value of 400 ringgit per week. Okay, now if you compare the expected value between the candy shop and the bubble tea kiosk, which is higher? Okay, so you can see when you use a quantitative analysis, the result will be slightly different. You are considering all the potential alternatives possible with the outcome that you want. Okay, so this time around, bubble tea kiosks have higher equivalent value compared to the candy shop. So the preferred choice in this case is to open up a bubble tea kiosk sebab untung lagi banyak. Okay? Okay, so if we look at the previous example of the candy shop and the bubble tea kiosk, so you already calculated that the expected value for the bubble tea kiosk is higher than the expected value of the candy shop. You get 400 ringgit from the bubble tea kiosk project. Okay. Does it mean that if you proceed with the bubble tea kiosk project, then you will definitely earn 400 ringgit? Well, no, not necessarily. That 400 ringgit basically means that if you open up multiple bubble tea kiosks in the same situation, in the same condition, then the total average income would be approximately 400 ringgit. Okay. I believe by now you already understand how you can use the decision tree in a quantitative analysis. So basically, there are 5 steps when you want to use the decision tree for quantitative analysis. Step number 1, we are going to use the same example again. Step number 1 is you have to identify what is the possible future condition, or we call it the state of nature. In our example just now, our possible future condition is either you open up a candy shop or whether you open up a bubble tea kiosk. Okay, that is number 1. The second step is you have to develop list of possible alternatives for each condition. So in this case, a possible alternative is whether the business fail or the business succeed. So there are 2 alternatives. It can be more than that. Okay. Number 3, you have to find the likelihood of each possible alternatives. Remember, likelihood is also termed as probability. So you have to determine the likelihood for each alternative in a numerical value. So it have to be like 50% or 20% or 30%. But most importantly, you have to remember the total of all those likelihood must be equal to 100% for each condition. Okay, that is very, very important. Okay, the 4th step is you have to determine the payoff associated to each alternative for every future condition. So let's say if the candy shop succeed, so what is the earning? Or if it fail, what is the amount that you lose? So again, it plays around with the numerical value. It plays around with numbers. That's why we call it quantitative analysis. Okay, and step number 5, probably the final step and the most important step, is find the alternative, evaluate the equivalent value for each alternative, and then you select the best alternative. So the alternative will be selected based on the highest expected value, as we illustrated just now. Okay guys, you already reached the end of our risk management topic. Yay, I'm so excited, really. So if we recall our risk management planning process previously, so the risk management process involves 3 principles. Number 1, identifying the risk. Number 2, analyzing the risk. And number 3, take control of the risk. In identifying the risk, you already list all the potential problems that you may encounter in your project in a risk register. Remember? Okay, so in number 2, the second part, which is the risk analysis part, we already performed the qualitative analysis using the risk matrix chart. Remember the colorful chart, the red, yellow, green chart. So you also perform a quantitative analysis in this video. Okay, we convert all the possible alternatives into monetary value. So the third part, which is take control of the risk, we did not really cover that in detail, but then if you look at the analysis part, at least you get an idea the severity of the potential problem that you will likely face in your project. So in qualitative risk analysis, you kind of sort which risk is more critical compared to the other risk. And then when you already identified that risk, you may come up with alternatives, possible solution, and you can perform quantitative analysis to calculate the equivalent monetary value of that alternative, which gives better benefit to your project. Okay, so at least from the analysis part, in a way you know how to take control of your risk. Okay, so I hope you really enjoyed this session. So in the next week, we are going to go back to our engineering economic chapter. I'm so excited. Okay, we are going to cover on the annual worth analysis. Till then, be safe, eat well, sleep well, and see you later, alligator.